All right. Welcome everybody to Gogotalx, brought to you by GOGOTIX, with Bryan Mills. Wait, let me say it right. Blazing Bryan Mills of Secret Society. So, sorry, I'm just getting Instagram set up here. Everybody that's on Instagram, make sure you head over to gogotix.co so you can see that Bryan, he's much more handsome than I am, according to himself. I don't necessarily agree with that. But anyway, Crazy Legs, what's up? Everybody head over to gogotix.co, please. That's where you're going to see both sides of this conversation. All right, well, just want to give it just a second to get a few people on here. Hey, Porter Boy, how you doing? Head over to gogotix.co. All you got to do is just click on today's episode or click watch, and it'll take you right to it. We're talking today with Bryan Mills, super saxophone player from Secret Society, if you ever went to karaoke live at the casino, he was the band leader there. If you ever went to the Crank Jam at City Winery, he was the band leader there. He's just an all-around good band leader, but he has, unfortunately, the worst jokes in the history of mankind. So yeah, if you're looking for comedy, don't look for Bryan.
Haters.
All right, well, I think what'd you say?
Haters in the mist.
Hey, yeah. Okay, if you're over at Instagram, head over to gogotix.co so you can see both sides of the conversation. Again, that's gogotix.co. It's not .com, it's .co, gogotix.co. The information is pinned to the top. So head on over there, and you can ask your questions or anything that you have of Bryan as we go along. So, all right, Bryan, why don't you go ahead and give us your 3 to 45 minute history in the music industry, and yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was born the son of a sharecropper.
Oh my God, here we go.
Nah, man, I'm a Montgomery County kid, real talk. I wasn't even into go-go, to be honest with you, when I was younger, man. I was a hip-hop guy, and rap was my thing. My first experience with go-go was in high school. I had a high school band from Montgomery County called Sheer Madness. And that was the beginning for me, and it was cool. It's different. I liked the live band thing. That was like awesome. I just love all types of bands and playing with live musicians. So that part was cool. My next step from that was actually playing with Proper Utensils with James Funk and Little Benny. So I went from, Montgomery County local band to DC legendary band.
Royalty. You went straight to the top.
Yeah, and it was cool. It was interesting because I didn't know any of those guys. I mean, I knew their names, but I didn't know them. I mean, Little Benny came up to me and said hello, and I was like, "Hey, what's going on, man? I'm Bryan. What's your name?"
Right.
He looked at me like, Little Benny.
So wait, so slow down a little bit though. How did you go from this local Montgomery County band? Like, how did you get to Proper Utensils?
So that's a good question. One of the guys that played in Sheer Madness with me, he was a trumpet player, and he had played in a couple of go-go bands. I think he was a Hot Cold Sweat at one point. And Funk had approached him and was like, "Hey man, I'm putting this band together. I'm looking for a horn section. You got a sax player in mind?" He was like, "I got this young guy, man. He was pretty good, or whatever." And so we
obviously many years ago. What's up, Mike? Head over to gogotix.co. Everybody that's on Instagram, the full interview is happening on gogotix.co. So you're not going to hear Bryan's side of the conversation. You're only going to hear my side of the conversation. And while I know I'm very handsome to look at, if you want to see the other side, head over to gogotix.co. All right. So you were explaining how you went from local Montgomery County band to Proper Utensils.
Yeah. So Funk had approached a guy that went to my high school. He had played with like Hot Cold Sweat, and he was he was telling he was starting this Proper Utensils band up again. That's not the first Proper Utensils I've learned after the fact, but he had
the second iteration or something.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, when I say I was green, bro, I mean I didn't know nothing about nothing. I know the songs on the radio, and that was about it.
Right.
So he my friend told me, hey man, this I don't know, he didn't even tell me. This is the crazy part. Funk called my house, man. It was like 2:30 in the morning or something. I'm 18 or 19, living at home. I picked up the phone. I was like, yo, man, hello? I picked up quick because I'm like, who the hell is calling my father don't play that? You know what I'm saying? So I was like, hello? He was like, yeah, can I speak to Brian? I said, this is Brian? Yeah, this is James. This is James Funk, formerly of Rare Essence. So I said, hey, man, you got to call me tomorrow. Click. And I hung up on his ass because real talk, I wasn't trying my father coming in like, yo, who's calling? Who got calling the house this late? So anyway, he called me back. He did call me back, and he was talking, and I was like, I don't know. I played in a go-go band once before. I'm thinking that this is like another local venture. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know nothing. Like I said, I didn't know who he was. So
right.
Like, well, think about it and get back to me. So I went to my local band I used to play with, my homies, and I was like, hey man, this guy named James Funk called. And they were like, yeah, right. I was like, no, seriously. They're like, really? Like, he called you? What do you want? And he was like, I said, he started a band and asked me to want to play. And they were like, oh man, you can do that. Like, jump on it, funny or whatever. And I was like, okay, sure, why not? So I went to this rehearsal, and I don't make this story too long, but at the end of the rehearsal or the tryouts or whatever you want to call it, he asked me, would I mind if he kept me but cut my boy, the one I knew that?
He shanked the dude that brought you in.
Yeah, man. I was like, I don't know. Well, I'm like I said, I'm green. I don't know this dude at all.
Right.
But I did understand the situation at that point. Like, this is bigger than Montgomery County or whatever. Right, so I talked to my friend, and he was cool. He was really cool. His name is Kim, man. You might know him. Kim Clark plays trumpet. He played with a couple of people.
I know who he is.
But yeah, he said, man, nah, man, I ain't gonna shut you down. Like, do your thing. This is an opportunity. I'm not gonna hold you back. If he just wants to use you,
right,
go ahead. And that's how I got with Proper Utensils.
Okay. Cool. And then just real quick, everybody that's on Instagram, if you're wondering why you can't hear the other side of the conversation, it's because we're over at GOGOTIX.co. So head over to GOGOTIX.co, click on today's episode, or just click watch underneath today's episode with Bryan Mills. Bryan was just telling us about how he went from local Montgomery County go-go band. Well, he went from not knowing about go-go at all to local Montgomery County go-go band, straight into Proper Utensils with James Funk calling him at 2:30 in the morning. So head on over to GOGOTIX.co and you can hear the rest of the story. So, okay. All right. So how long were you with Proper Utensils?
I want to say that was early 90s, maybe 92 to about, I don't know, maybe 97, 98.
Okay, so like it's kind of 6 years, so decent amount of time.
Yeah, it was definitely a learning experience, and I got a lot in with them and learned a whole lot fast.
Well, real quick, if you could just tick off the top 3 things, what are the top 3 things that you learned?
One of the main things, as a band member, like keeping my eye on Funk, like, because he was cueing us. He taught me how to use my peripheral vision. Like, I don't have to stare him down. I could just corner my eye. And man, I mean, dude, this is 30 years later, and I say that and reiterate that to even my band. Like, hey, man, you got to pay attention because I might call something. You never know what I'm going to do.
Right.
So that stands out to me as like my number one learning experience. Second thing was more like, just paying it, like reading the crowd, knowing, hey, I don't have to do this song. With Secret Society, I used to do a set list. Right. And I still do, but I don't always. I mean, if I see a song that's coming up and I feel like it's not going to work, then I'll call an audible. You know what I mean? And Funk was really, really good with that. Like, he never had a set list, but he could just, I mean, he was like, you know, he'd give us a cue, and then the next song, the crowd would go crazy because he knew like what was coming up next.
Right.
Third thing, I'm not real sure. Just being like the professionalism part of it, being on time, being trustworthy, showing up to rehearsals, taking it seriously. You know, I've seen, I mean, in that band, not to call out any names or anything, but I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to that.
Right.
And people just doing whatever they wanted, coming when they want to come, and you know, and hey, just like any job, man, you can get fired. And I've seen cats just get fired like that, you know, and these guys were like legendary musicians who kind of, I think they took for granted, like, hey, I'm so-and-so, so I can do this, I can be late, I can be trifling. And Funk just didn't play that. He didn't care who you were. He's like, hey man, I'll do this show by my damn self. You know what I'm saying? So the professionalism side of it, and the business of just, you know, that part of it, the business of the band and the you know, learning your parts and coming prepared to rehearsals and not, you know, rehearsing to rehearse, not rehearsing to learn the song, stuff like that. You know what I mean? But I give all credit to James Funk, man. He's a true mentor to me. I mean, he's an interesting guy, you know, in a good way. You know, some people love him, some people hate him, but it's kind of like he's kind of like a Michael Jordan type of dude, when especially, you know, with this whole documentary that's going on with pushing everyone around him to be better. And some people thought he was being an asshole, some of them thought it was being, you know, just tough love, and you know, and that's really kind of very parallel with Funk. He was that way, like, hey man, I want the best out of you, and I'm going to say some shit to you that you might not like. You know what I'm saying? But it's going. The end result is trying to bring out the best in everybody.
But did he state that up front so that you were aware of that, or did he just say what he had to say and you just took it how you took it?
Yeah, he didn't say it in like I said it, but he would say, like, you know, hey, when we do this show, I want this to be, you know, polished A+ material. I want you to, you know, look the part. You know what I'm saying? Like, dress accordingly. Don't get slumming and, you know, bumming. Like, when we hit the stage, it's showtime. And, you know, he wants perfection. I mean, he rehearsed relentlessly. You know, we rehearsed all the time. And, you know, he was one of those guys that was just focused. Like, he never, like, maybe we joke around a little bit, but nah, not really.
Well, where do you think, I mean, how do you, I guess I'm trying to figure out how to formulate this question. How do you think he was able to, like, convince guys to, I mean, obviously he wasn't able to convince everybody to do it, but was it like, you know, you can say that stuff all you want, but having guys actually follow you is a totally different situation. You know what I mean? Was it, you know, and frequently in DC, it's like, okay, well, if you're not paying me this amount of money, I'm not listening to you. And so, I mean, I assume it was a paid gig, but you know, if you're just starting out, I don't know how much. So how was he able to convince these guys to do that?
I want to say there's a combination of his, you know, his former reputation. Once I learned who he was,
right, and
I was like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, you know, okay, so this guy is not just some dude who's trying to start a band. Like, he's
legendary,
and he's a go-go legend who'd been off the scene for a while. So him coming, like, the whole Proper Utensils coming back was like a major news in the go-go community. You know what I mean? It's like,
that was a little bit before my time. How many years after him leaving Rare Essence was that? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but I want to say, like, I mean, maybe 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Oh, that long? Okay.
Well, one, I mean, definitely more than 1 or 2.
Gotcha.
I want to say about 3 or 4, maybe 5 years. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But it was enough that when he came back to the scene, it was like major news. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you know, the band that we had, it had a lot of big names, but it also had some no names, which was to me, again, I didn't know, but after years of learning the game, the guy that was playing in Congos who no one had, you know, everyone was like, who is this dude? You know what I mean? Like, but he, you know, he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't a Mickey either. But he was just Funk was like, hey, he was proving to point, like, I don't need a superstar.
Right. You just need somebody solid that's going to be there.
Be there and play the beats.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Play the beats I want. and that's what he did, and it worked, and it was fine. You know, I didn't know the difference between this guy and a Go-Go Mickey at that time. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it was
Right.
these guys that are here just working. But his work ethic and his demand for doing things right and being, he wanted perfection. So I think just his overall, his aura, man, and the way he carried himself, and you know, we had some nice gigs here and there as we started rolling, and I think people just started to, you know, believed in the process, believed in the machine that he had built, and it was like, you know, and yeah, you're right, it was paying. It wasn't. I mean, I'm sure I didn't get paid as much as Little Benny did, but
right.
It was money for me. It was a lot more money than I was making any other time. So, you know, I think it was just kind of a
Gotcha. Okay, so this was a step up for you in terms of pay. I got you. So this was a step up for you in terms of pay. Sorry, you were.
Yeah. Dude, I was going from $20, $20 a show, $0 a show to, you know, 100. I think my first gig for him was like $80, and I lived in a I was going to Howard, and I lived in a room off campus, and my rent was $320 a month. So we had 4 shows at the Ibex every week, paying $80. 80 times 4, $320. So
yeah, so you paid your rent in a week.
My rent. I wasn't eating, but my rent was.
That's what's up.
I want to do
real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick, I just want to Wiley, Chuck Brown's son, is on the Instagram. What's up, Wiley? Everybody that's over on well, he can't hear you now, so I'm just trying to tell everybody that's over on Instagram, head on over to GOGOTIX.co and click on watch on today's episode, and you'll hear Bryan Mills talking about his history when he started in go-go in the year 1873. Okay, all right. So, well, I did want to point out one thing when you're talking about the work ethic, because that's something like yesterday I interviewed my buddy Monty Shulman, who was I didn't bring it up, but he brought it up, so it's cool to say. I guess he is Lear Cohen's brother. Lear Cohen is one of the 3 people that ran Def Jam. There was, Russell Simmons, Rick Rubin, and when Rick Rubin left to go to do Def American and focus more on rock music, Lear Cohen was the guy running Def Jam at the time. And Monty is a senior vice president of radio promotion at Atlantic Records now. And one thing I asked him was, what do you notice about the artists that have long careers? Because he's been in the major music industry since the early 80s, and that's the one thing he said was work ethic. You know what I mean? So, and like in your example with Funk, if Funk has that high work ethic, then that trickles down to the band members, you know what I'm saying? And so I think that's really important as a band leader to have that work ethic yourself, because then when you have that, it trickles down to the rest of your band, and they feel like you're busting your ass too. So, all right. So you're playing with Proper Utensils until about what, 98, you said?
So yeah, absolutely. To be perfectly honest, it was right 98, 99, because that's when my son was born, and that's when I started playing with Chuck, and that's how I measure. I know my Chuck's days because my son was born a month before my first gig with Chuck Brown.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's a hell of a month right there. Have your first child and start playing with Chuck Brown. That's what's up.
Man, I needed that. Yes.
Okay, so did you go directly from Proper to PU to Chuck?
So there's an overlap. When I was playing Prop, I also was playing with Suttle Thoughts. So I was playing 2 bands.
Oh, at that time. Okay.
And Suttle Thoughts wasn't playing as much at the time, but there was one point, man, where it was way too much, man. I was gigging 2 times in one night, or leaving early. I leave Suttle Thoughts to go play with Chuck. I mean, it was crazy. I had quit Proper Utensils eventually because it just got to be too much. And Suttle Thoughts was real hot at that point, like real like brand new, and started playing like 5-6 days a week, and I needed that bread, man. So yeah, but so yes, I stopped playing with Prop, still playing with Suttle, but then I started playing with Chuck, and Chuck kind of took over as a priority. I had, it's so foggy to me now. I don't really remember how I stopped playing with Suttle, but I definitely stopped playing with Suttle to play full time with Chuck.
What do you remember how you started playing with Suttle? Because I didn't realize that there was that crossover time.
That's an interesting story. A lot of people might not know this, but Suttle was not a go-go band when they first started. They were more like jazz.
I remember that. I do remember that.
And they called me to kind of play like the first 2 or 3 songs of their set. So I wasn't even like a full-fledged member of Suttle Thoughts. I was more like a guest, and I would come and play like like they play an instrumental tune, and I'd play the lead on the first 2 or 3 songs, and then I would go home. But then I started. This is I don't know, a lot of people might not know this, but I stole the idea from Maisha and the Hip Huggers, because Maisha and the Hip Huggers was very similar to Suttle Thoughts, where they were playing like pop and R&B, but then they got Sugar Bear to come and front them, and that was a phenomenon. Do you remember that? Are you old enough to remember that?
What Maisha and the Hip Huggers?
Maisha and the Hip Huggers featuring Sugar Bear, like that.
Yeah, I was in college at Morgan State, and I used to drive down every week to see him at Tacoma Station.
Tacoma Station was nuts.
Yeah, I'm not that young. Just because my beard isn't gray, like
you asked me about how you were too young, so I'm off you. Yeah, man, Maisha and the Hip Huggers before Sugar Bear was they were like a pop band, R&B.
Yep. Yeah, the top 40 band.
Yeah, and then when they brought Sugar Bear in, I mean, they quadrupled their profits and crowd. I mean, it just turned into this thing.
Yep.
So while I was with Suttle Thoughts, I had the same idea and asked Funk if he could come and do the same thing. And he did, and it was the same thing. I mean, the word hit the street, and the next week it was jam packed. But Funk didn't want to do that. He didn't want to be a feature. So
gotcha. He wanted to be.
But then they called I think they called Pratt. That's how Pratt got it with Suttle Thoughts, and Pratt started fronting the band, and that's how Suttle Thoughts started the whole go-go thing. That was, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but that was my idea to bring funk in, and the Suttle Thoughts go-go band was born out of that.
And then we used to play together at you may not know this, but Solo. So you created the idea for Suttle Thoughts to add the go-go. I had the name for Solo. So Solo was my name that I came up with. So while we're taking credit for everything.
What's the acronym? What does it stand for?
Well, I didn't make up the acronym part. Originally, the way it came about was I was going to start a management company, and I had already. This was when I was going to start a management company when I was still in Montana, and I had a logo design for it and everything, but then I just didn't end up doing it. And so I just was like, when we were changing from Northeast Groovers to start this new project, we needed a name. So I came up with that. And Hug was actually the one that came up with the acronym, which is really clever because it was basically Northeast Groovers to start with. So it was called Sounds of Us Living On, because we had, Northeast Groovers took a hit when Rapper left. And then, we brought in another guy from my old band in Annapolis called General Lee, who was in Northeast for a while. Then we had Solo, and then, Northeast Groovers just kind of stopped. But yeah, so that was around the same time. I think that all that was happening around 2001, I guess, something like that. And when we were playing at Club U and all that. But you guys Suttle had already been going for a while, I guess, at that time.
Club U.
Yep. Club U with the
fish and chicken
buffet. What's that? What'd you say?
With the fish and chicken?
Yeah. No, I just remember the Swedish meatballs, pause. But yeah, that was my thing. So real quick, everybody that's on Instagram, head on over to GOGOTIX.co, and the full interview is over there, so you can hear the other side of it. Okay, so Suttle Thoughts, and then that crossed over into Chuck.
Chuck.
But wait, you were doing Proper Utensils and Subtle Thoughts, and then you added Chuck also?
Yeah, and real talk, I was also playing with Marcus Johnson project.
Oh wow, yeah, I remember that too. Yeah,
All that was happening at the same time at one point. It was a 4-band overlap at one point. It was insane. It was, and I was doing a lot because I was with Suttle and Marcus. Sometimes I would play keys. You know, I'm a sax player.
Yep.
Playing keys, so I would come to the gig with we didn't have back lines, so I had I'd bring my own stuff. It was a lot. It was a lot. I would never do that now.
I remember Marcus did when he had 3 keys, he did like a conference, like a music conference kind of thing or something like that. It was, I mean, it was small, but it was like it was like I mean, I don't know any way to describe it than a music conference, but about like the music business and how to start a record label and all that stuff. And I went to that when I was first I mean, I had been to another one in LA, which is what sort of gave me the idea for Red Sea Records and, Mambo Sauce. And then I went to another one with Marcus. So I don't remember if you played there or not, or if he just was talking, but.
Where was it?
I'm trying to remember the venue. It was a venue. Hey, Ignatius, head over to gogotix.co, and then you'll be able to hear both sides of the conversation. gogotix.co, and just click watch on today's episode, and it'll take you right to the full interview. I want to say it was like DC Live or something, or one of the I forget what it was. It was one of those kind of venues.
It could have been. I mean, I'm leaning towards saying that we probably didn't play just because gotcha. I mean, he wasn't. At that point, the money wasn't there like it probably is now.
Right.
Probably not, but he did. I know he did a lot of those in a lot of those seminars and how to.
Yeah, that's a better. That was the word I was looking for was seminar. I couldn't think of. I kept thinking conference, but yeah, it was more like a seminar. But anyway, okay, all right. So you're playing with every single band in the city, and then how do you decide to filter out who's got to get cut and why?
Yeah. Well, it was a no-brainer. When Chuck Brown called, it was like,
right.
Okay. You know what I mean? Like, his money was 3 times whatever I was making from everybody else.
Right.
And not just the fact that it was him. You know what I mean? He could have said, all right, real talk. He was like, yo, I'm not paying you a dime, but I want you to pay my band. I would have still played.
Right.
Because of who he was and what he represented and the music. I knew, like, remember I told you I was green. I didn't know anything about Go. I knew who Chuck Brown was.
Right.
Knew his music and I knew it on the radio. So, and I loved it. You know what I mean? Like, it's because he was like a jazz guy and go-go beats, jazz songs over go-go beats. And that was amazing to me. I was like, dude, that's just awesome. Like, it's just a great concept because I knew all those tunes.
But by this time, you weren't green anymore. You're playing with Proper Utensils and Subtle Thoughts.
Yeah, like, I paid my dues with Proper Utensils, dude. You know what I'm saying? I learned so much just about the the game and it was grimy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was fun. Don't get me wrong, I've never traded those years, but it was some of those years were grimy, man. And
what do you mean by grimy?
Equipment, venues. We weren't playing any plush spots. And that's not to take away. It is what it is. It's what it was. You know what I mean? East Side,
right?
Ibex, Reed's Metro Club. You know what I'm saying? You get some chicken. Some people go down to a little speakeasy down some stairs.
The hairy chicken from the Metro Club was the best, man. That shit was awesome.
Man, that greasy bag. I got old Benny would have like 3 bags of chicken, and every week we played it weekly, and he would leave with these big bags of chicken, and he not. Every time it was like that. But me too. I didn't give it all that much. But yes, the chicken was bomb.
Right. No, I used to play there with Northeast every Wednesday, and I would get that shit. I was like, man, this is the best shit ever. The hairy chicken, boy. That was my shit. All right, so Chuck Brown, obviously that's the priority. How did you decide what other projects to let go?
I think I'll be honest with you. Everything that happened was not my own. I didn't leave on my own terms for everything. I think Suttle Thoughts one point were like, hey man, because I was, I started to become like more part-time.
Right.
And I think they got tired of that. And they're like, hey, look, we need someone who's going to be here on a regular basis. And, I totally understood. And like, hey, I was just trying to, I mean, Chuck was great, but if I could make more money, I was going to do it. So
right.
Need somebody, who's here all the time. And I was like, hey, that's cool. I get it. So that was the end of that. Same thing with Marcus Johnson. I think, I mean, he at one point he started using different people, and I think he just kind of, instead of it being a group, it was more like, this is my group, and I'm going to pick whoever I want to, to use. So that was another, like, not my decision, but not mad. There was never any kind of bad blood. It was more like, okay, I see what you're saying. I like to play. I like to keep doing, but I get I'd be the same way. If somebody in my band was doing the most and couldn't play with us, but two out of 4 gigs, I might say the same thing. But yeah, after a while, it was just Chuck, and I wasn't mad at that at all. Those were the glory years, man. It was so much fun. Yeah, that was the breakdown.
Right. Cool. All right. So how long did you play with Chuck?
Chuck, and from 99, 98, 99 until he passed, was 2012. So that was a good, 13, 14 years. And I mean, with Chuck.
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I was gonna say with Chuck. I mean, I learned the absolute most, and that was basically just, man. He was so fatherly. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, people, his nickname Pops is like real talk, man, because he was
Pops. Yeah, I don't call him Pops for nothing, right?
I mean, he was like a father figure to, I want to say, thousands. You know what I'm saying? Definitely hundreds. I want to say thousands. I mean, there were guys that worked with us, and who, I even asked, like, because I mean, it'd be some wild dudes, backstage with us or whatever, carrying equipment. And when I asked about it, the vibe was, hey, man, this person would probably be dead or in jail if he wasn't, working with us, working with Chuck, and Chuck gave him a shot. You know what I mean? Like, just to keep people off the street, keep people positive and doing something. You know what I'm saying? Like a boys club, but the boys club was his band. Like he was just a, but he was so personable. I can't even. I mean, I've never met a human being that was so friendly and genuine and informative and passing along stuff. He didn't mind showing you anything. You know what I mean? Musically, professionally, personally, invite you to his house. I mean, he was just really, really cool.
How do you think that affected his success?
Oh man, dude, everything that I do now is from what I learned from him. I mean, it definitely. I mean, think about, like, all right, how like these superstars, and they're, they might be snootier or bougie and don't want to shake hands and want to take pictures. He was never, ever, ever like that. I mean,
my contention, at least from my experience, I mean, just from having booked a lot of, major artists and having, worked in radio and met a lot of major artists, the ones that I've met, the ones that are the most successful for the longest period of time are exactly like him. They're the ones that will take the time to share something that will be as. I was just talking to Mati yesterday because he brought LL Cool J to the radio station that I was working at in Vegas because he was at Def Jam at the time, and I always tell the story about how LL Cool J, who has still like hosted the Grammys a couple of years ago, like he's not relevant, but he's still relevant, like he's still making money.
Sure.
And he treated the intern with the same level of respect that he treated the program director, the person who can decide whether to play his song or not. You know what I mean? So I just think that's part of what I want to, part of the reason I'm doing this series is that there seems to be a lot of misinformation throughout the go-go community about, what what you need to do to become successful. And obviously whatever everybody's been doing to try to be successful on a national, international level, with the exception of Chuck, has not been working. I mean, with the exception of Chuck for an extended period of time, I should say. There are a lot of people that, had some success early in the 80s, but haven't been able to really replicate that again in the way that he was. So I just think that's a really important point. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think that probably, I mean, every person that I've met that is very successful is like a nice person. And sure, yeah, there are some people that are assholes like yourself, but for the most part, people that are successful are, just generally agreeable and easy to get along with, but at the same time, firm in their convictions about what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. And you can be firm about that, but you don't have to be a dick, you know?
Right.
So what else? So aside from that, what else did you learn from him? I'm very interested in this because you were closest to the most successful person in this genre.
Yeah, I mean that strategy of his of always being available. I mean, when you going back to your first question, like how did that translate to his success? I mean, everybody was able to approach him, and he made sure of that. Like we'd be out, like we had a gig somewhere, and they have like a barrier in front, or like a gate or a fence. He would say, hey, he would stop the show and tell them to take it down because he didn't feel comfortable, and he wanted people to be close to him. When we go and assign like a security guard or security, he would tell them to back off. Walk back there. Don't walk on. I want people to be able to come up and shake my hand. I want people to come and take a picture with me or whatever. To be a part. I don't want them to be intimidated by these 6'6" bodyguards on my left and right hand side. He would literally like back up. You know what I'm saying? And one of the biggest testimonies of his just on that same subject, like when he passed, if you notice, man, on social media, like everybody and their mom posted a picture of Chuck and them in the picture. You know what I mean? Like together.
Not I had one too. No, I didn't have one, but I have my wife. I took a picture with him with my wife and I posted that.
Yeah, everyone, I mean, the pictures were by the thousands. Like everyone had, I saw Chuck, Chuck was at Starbucks or, you know what I'm saying? He's always like that. And he's always very friendly. And I noticed, I mean, I've learned like anyone else, like, dude, that's it right there. Like if you're cool and you're cool with your fan base and you let them know that you love them and you mean it, you show it, they'll return the favor tenfold, with supporting your music and supporting your business or whatever.
Yep, that's engaging with your audience. Yep.
Absolutely, man. Dude, he took it to the next level, bro. I mean, I remember shows where we played at the Strathmore Arts Center one year, and he was out signing CDs and taking pictures of, just meet and greet type of thing for everyone. It wasn't like a VIP. It was like anyone that wanted to take a picture. And the gig was over at 10. He was there till probably like 12. You know what I'm saying? Signing pictures, signing CDs and taking pictures. And, the band is gone, man. He was there. Like my mom and dad were there for that show. And, they got the chance to meet him and say hello. And, it was really cool, man. But from a business standpoint, man, one thing I remember, this is just a random thing. He always told us to never let the crowd leave you. You should always leave the crowd. Like basically, like if the crowd's getting light, instead of just having the venue, dude say, hey, I'm going to leave and go somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? To give the parents that I'm leaving the situation. You're not firing me. You know what I mean? Like he didn't want to let people get to the point where it make it look like he was the problem. You know what I mean?
I feel like that even just being on stage. I mean, obviously sometimes you're contracted to play for a certain amount of time, but if you're playing and the people are just not feeling it and you have the ability to just stop, I would just stop and make it look like you stopped as opposed to, like just keep playing for a disinterested crowd. Like just it's better to play for 20 minutes and kill it than it is to play for an hour and a half, maybe mediocre.
Another thing was just what I learned from him was just treating your band members a certain way. He treated us like we were his family. And it resonated in what we were willing to do for him and what we were willing to sacrifice and whatever. I mean, because he, like for example, whenever we get on a plane, he would always ride and coach, even though he had a first class ticket. They offered him first class. He's like, no, I want to be with my band. I don't want to be separate from them or let them be in coach while I'm in first class. Well, his mentality is like, I want to be with them. Either we're all in first class or we're all in coach, not being in first class. And he just, he treated us like family members, and it transferred over to, when we played on stage, it was, hey, we're going to give him 150% because he's always done that for us and always, is very generous and, just man, we need 3 hours on the show to go into all the Chuck Brown stories, man, because he was just such a great guy, like real talk. And I have nothing bad to say about that man. I never will. I won't let anybody talk bad about him. It just won't happen.
Yeah, I've never heard anybody even try to be honest with you. That's a testament to his character.
He was a good dude, man. He was a really good dude. I mean, he's human. I'm sure he's probably had his moments and like anybody else, but for 12, 13 years of me being around him, it was all good. All good.
Well, so I'm interested to know, because I strive to be like that. I try to be like that, but then a lot of times I felt that I was being taken advantage of, and I probably like whipped too far to the other extreme. You know what I mean? And so how did because I'm sure that had to have happened at least once or twice over that period of time. So how was that handled? And did he handle it, or did Tom handle it, and how Tom was there the whole time you were there, or not the whole time?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it was Tom and Becky when I first got there. And then Tom and Becky kind of fell off. Hey, listen, I'm sorry about that. My wife was in the background acting a damn fool trying to make me laugh.
Mine was doing it earlier, but I've figured out.
I wanted to turn the camera so bad and show you what these little. But so I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question for me one more time?
That's all good. No, I just want to know, like, it's one thing to say that you're going to be, that you're going to treat everybody like family, and you're going to, be available for your band members and treat them, with respect. I mean, that's sort of the base level. You got to treat them with respect. Hey, YKC, damn man, sorry, we're not. The rest of this interview it's not really happening on Instagram. So if you head over to GOGOTIX.co, that's where the interview is happening right now. So now I'm live with Bryan Mills, so I'm not going to be able to bring anybody else in, unfortunately. But thanks for checking in. GOGOTIX.co is where the full interview is happening. So my question, Bryan, is, it's one thing to say that, but then it's another thing when people are, when band members or whoever or crew members are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they are, taking advantage of the situation or something like that. So how was that handled? And still, and you're still able to keep the camaraderie going.
You're talking about with Chuck and that point?
Yep.
I want to say that there were those moments were few and far between. I can only think of one incident where someone like left the band off of not such good terms. But yeah, I mean, Tom usually played the bad cop in those roles.
Gotcha.
And but I mean, yeah, I like I said, man, Chuck was the master of dialogue, and he's a master of telling you ain't shit, but it'd be in the nicest way, in a polite way, or just, I mean, he, like you said, man, there's times where he's had to raise his voice, and there's times he had to, put his foot down, but there are so few and far between. I think a lot of times, Tom would kind of step in and play the bad cop role, like I said.
Gotcha.
Yeah, if he was to tell you something, it was a lesson as opposed to a scolding. Does that make sense? It was
Yep.
like, hey man, let me show you that this is what you're doing is wrong. And instead of him being the kind of person like you ain't shit, you're all messed up and this is wrong, he'd be like, hey, listen, this is not the way it's supposed to be done, but let me show you let me show you what you're supposed to do. That's that's the difference, man, between the greats. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
let me show you how it's done the right way instead of let me, be a tough guy and put my chest out and tell you how make you feel bad about yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, Chuck was the opposite. He was like, hey, listen, this isn't right and you shouldn't be doing this, but this is the better way of doing things. I mean, I had my moments, man, where I wasn't always the greatest band member or not. I had to get checked a few times. And it was a conversation. It wasn't like a yelling or point the finger and make me feel horrible. It's like, hey, I know that you can do better. I've seen you do better, and let's do better. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, damn, I let Chuck down or whatever. And, it's happened to me, you know what I mean? So I've seen it happen to other people. But it's all in the way you talk to people and all the way that you present yourself. And he was just a master at that, man.
For sure. Well, so you played with Chuck until he passed, and then did you start? The Secret Society started while you were still playing with him?
Yeah. Secret Society started in 2008, 2009. And so, yeah, Chuck was still playing. And my reason for that was I felt like Chuck wasn't going to be playing forever. You know what I mean? I mean, I didn't think about him passing. It was just more like he's getting older and,
he's not going to want to play anymore. Right.
Yeah. And I had my own band before this. It was called
Soul Sponge. I remember. Fun fact. The first singer of, or I don't know if she was the first singer, but the singer from Soul Sponge became the first singer for Mambo Sauce, Tyler.
That was the name was wild, I know, but I that was my first experience as a band leader. So, but it didn't last too long. We were more go-go centered, and it became a special guest appearance show where everything was like, hey, I got to bring this well-known person, as opposed to being our own self-contained unit. You know what I mean? So I shut that down because it was more like, hey, if Little Benny's not there, I don't want to go.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Secret Society, I put that together more of and I'm gonna be perfectly honest. For Secret Society, we're not a go-go band at all. We hardly do, and we do a little tribute to Chuck Brown in some of our shows. Go swing, something like that, but we don't even have percussion, so we're not a go-go.
Well, that was one of my questions. Is why did you decide to step away?
Perfect. I got your answer. In the DMV, as we all know, go-go is super saturated. There's 1,001 bands, all very similar in style, sound, look, format. I wanted to just do something different. No offense. I when I say that, I say that with the utmost. I come from go-go. I'm not putting it down. It's nothing to do with not liking go-go. It's more like, hey, what can I do that's going to be a little different? What can I do that's going to set my band apart from this band? What am I going to do? How can we be on this market and be successful without sounding like everybody else and doing the same format? So the format and the idea behind Secret Society was like, I'm 47. I'll be 48 this year. And what I was looking for was trying to get that my genre, my era to party and dance. Because if you weren't doing go-go in this area, you're either jazz band or instrumental group or top 40, I haven't seen a whole lot of success with that. Because it's like people want to sit, if you're an instrumental group, it's cool. Most of the time people are sitting down eating, not dancing, partying.
Right.
My strategy was, well, how can I get my age group to party and have a great time and listen, but spending money and giving up, the strategy behind it was like, let me play some of these songs from the 80s and 90s which is what we partied to at that time. You know what I'm saying? In the 90s, right. I'm 20, 21 years old. So we started playing all these retro hip hop stuff and a lot of old school R&B. It's something we danced to. So it worked. I mean, people started to come out and see us like, oh, the buzz was created by secret society, and the formula worked. I mean, we took the same concept as Go-Go because we don't stop between our songs. So we're not playing a song, stop, clap, and then play another song. We didn't do that. We're merging and almost
transitioning from one song to
like a DJ. And that was the secret behind secret society. Like, I mean, we would go from one song and go to the next song. And, that's my joint or whatever. It was the transition that set us apart, I think, from a lot of groups in the area. But yeah,
how long you said? So you said it was working. You said you noticed that it worked. How long did it take for you to realize that it was working?
Not long. I want to say. So we got our start really for real at Half Note Lounge in Bowie. And we came in there, and I think just the going from the song to song, which is something that just wasn't really happening for a non-go-go band. And just seeing the reaction from doing
right.
Fresh and hip hop, all these old school Eric B and Rakim stuff, just stuff like I said that I was popular in my younger years. It just translated to everybody else. Like that demographic was perfect for us. And they loved it. And it was like, okay, so let's keep doing, let's keep feeding the fire. And we just kept feeding the fire. So I want to say after playing there, maybe within about 3 months, I think it started, really grow and grow.
That's really quick.
Yeah, it was fast. I mean, it was like a buzz that hit the street. Like, oh, you heard the secret society? Yeah, check these guys out. And then it turned into something really nice.
That's what's up. That's funny. That's full circle. That you're playing Eric B and Rakim, and Paid in Full is a sample of Ashley's roast clip from Chuck Brown, and you were playing Chuck Brown with Chuck Brown at the same time. Right. That's crazy. Right. That's crazy. Right. Gotcha. Okay. So, at some point in this process, you also played with Thievery Corporation. What part was that, or when was that, and how did that occur, and what was different about that than everything else you were doing?
Yeah. So from the Chuck Brown horn section thing, we got a lot of offers from other groups. So Thievery Corporation, and those of you not familiar, they're a group out of the DC area, but they're like, I don't even know what to categorize them. Electronica, reggae. They're like a little bit.
They're like their own thing. Yeah, it's kind of hard to put them into
I can't classify them. I never heard of them.
Right.
But I never heard of them at all. And they came to us and said they were going on a tour, world tour, European tour. 10 days in the United States and like 30 days in Europe or something like that. And, they saw Chuck Brown at 930 Club, and the publicist for those guys worked at, I think he was an employee of the 930 Club as well. And he kind of had the idea, because they were, they had a lot of songs with horns, but they didn't have a horn section. And, if you don't know them, they use a lot of tracks in their live performance. So they had a whole backtracking of, horns or whatever they wanted. But I think they were looking for the visual of having the horns on the with the band. So they approached us about it. We went to talk to Chuck about it because, I don't want to we weren't going to do anything dirty, go behind his back and be gone for a month. So it was really good. Whatever they were offering was like, I need this. So yeah, it was great, man. We started.
So this was before they did the song with Chuck Brown then. So
yeah,
right?
Okay. Definitely before that. And we did that. We did the studio thing for that too. But it was great, man. I mean, it was a great opportunity. Chuck was cool about it. We got some replacements for us while we were gone, and started in Atlanta, went to Cali, got on a plane, went to Europe, stayed over there. That was nuts, man. We did 22 cities in 30 days.
22 cities in 30 days. Damn,
all on a sleeper bus and ferries and flights here and there. It was another great time, but me now, nah.
Well, so what would you compare and contrast? You said the biggest difference between being on tour with a group like Thievery Corporation. Now, granted, Thievery Corporation was already a very well established artist, probably bigger than, like has a bigger worldwide audience than probably all go-go bands put together. But what would you say what's up, everybody on Instagram? GOGOTIX at Uncle Nate. Head over to GOGOTIX.co and click watch on today's episode. We're over there with the full episode, so you can see both sides and hear both sides of the conversation. What would you say is the biggest difference, Brian, between touring with an internationally successful band like Thievery Corporation and playing locally with I assume you're playing nationally and internationally with Chuck during that time as well, but Thievery Corporation is just don't have the cultural impact, but in terms of the fan base is bigger.
Yeah, that's what they would do. I mean, their whole thing was touring. I mean, you don't really see them doing too many local, I mean, they do, but their thing is touring. So I don't know. I mean, I think the biggest difference was just, well, there's a lot of technical aspects. I mean, they had all kinds of in-ear monitors and tracks, and whatever you needed was like, I mean, that the production, and that's not to be insulting to Gogo or anything like that, but their production was just on a whole another level. I mean, the musicianship, to be quite honestly, I thought I thought Chuck's musicians were just much more skilled, but because of what they have established, anything you needed was at your arsenal. I mean, if I needed a Yoo-hoo with, what I'm saying, a chocolate milk, I want to talk about it right now. Someone's gonna go get it.
Is that on your rider that you need a Yoo-hoo?
No, I'm just being funny. But yeah,
I didn't read all through your. I have your rider. I'm gonna look it up after we get off this call, and I'm gonna see if there's I'm
just saying the wildest things I mean, whatever we needed when we were Thievery, and those sound checks, man, they were so intense. I mean, they're not intense like in a bad way, but like the sound check would take like 3 hours sometimes or 2 hours, and I probably only needed like 5 minutes. Hey, can I hear myself? Can I hear the track? Okay, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? But these other guys were like, oh, I need a little more cowbell. I need more tambourine in my mix. Right. Okay. Yeah, but playing with them, man. I mean, like I said, it's very similar. That when I was with started playing with Chuck, I didn't know anybody. When I was playing Thievery, I didn't know how big they were. So we were going in other countries, and having these after parties and stuff. And so, how's it feel to play with Thievery Corporation? And I'm like, to be honest with you, I've never heard of them before this tour.
You would say that.
It's like, oh my God, you know who you're playing with? And I'm like, not really.
Right. You're like, I'm just getting paid for this gig.
Yeah, I'm just doing the gig. Yeah, to be honest with you, I never heard of them. Their reactions, their faces, with their jaws would drop. Like, what? Oh my God.
Well, so what was on that tour? What do you think the average audience size? Like, how many people were there?
5,000 minimum.
Right, in every city.
Dude, we played. Let me tell you the story. We did a show in Croatia, and it was pouring rain. It was like Woodstock, man. Everyone was muddied up, barefoot, and it was almost like they wanted it to rain. You know what I mean? It was better for them, and it was so bizarre. I mean, I remember just seeing everyone people just didn't care, man. I mean, they just partied like it was. I mean, you could never have that here. I mean, probably 1,000 fights because there's too many people on top of each other. I remember we were at an after party in Croatia. There's some small club, man. When I tell you, I've never ever in my life been so, jam packed. Like, I'm trying to go to the bathroom, which is maybe 10 feet away from me, but probably 2 hours to get to, because, and then people are behind, hey, come on, man, go ahead. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, dog. I can't move. It was so many people, man. I was like, this is. I loved it. It was great at the time, and now I probably would have have a panic attack or something. I don't know.
Now that you're a gray beard.
Exactly. I was skinny back then.
Well, so you've been running Secret Society since 2009. So that's what, 11 years now. So
Yeah.
what would you say? Obviously, you learned a lot from Funk. You learned a lot from Chuck. You know, the big guys in the game, and I assume you learned, you know, some from Thievery Corporation as well. What would you say is the hardest part of running a band?
Without a doubt, it's dealing with the delivering bad news, maybe, or telling someone, I mean, I've unfortunately, I've had to fire people, you know what I'm saying? And anyone who knows me, my wife criticized me greatly about me being too nice. Like, sometimes you got to be the bad guy. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I just hate doing it. So, just delivering bad news or even not even bad news like that, but like, just telling someone, hey, man, I need you to be on time. I hate to say that because, I'm not perfect. I've been late for stuff too. You know what I mean? So it's like, but, wearing that hat, being the bad guy is not my favorite part of this, but it is a part of it. It's a part of the business. Any business owner is going to have to deal with that at some point in their business. And you're going to have to put your foot down. You have to give somebody some news they don't want to hear, say something they don't want to say. That part of it sucks. But that's just life. And, my goal is to never have to deal with that. You know what I mean? Like to try to always strive to be on the positive side of things and have people believe in what I'm doing to a point where they're, not giving me a reason to tell them something that they don't want to hear. So just delivering bad news sucks. And I hate it. I've never liked it. And I'm not very good at it. But I'm working on it.
I hear you. Well, so at some point, you also became a school teacher, right?
Yeah.
During this process, when did that happen?
This was a few years after my son was born. I want to say I started teaching when he was around 3 or 4. And that was more of like a
need to be a responsible adult.
Yeah. Yes. And just consistency, being, and you more so than anyone I know personally knows what I mean by that. Like being in the music business is very risky and never guaranteed. Nothing is ever guaranteed. It's like, I mean, it's a great business to be in because it's so much fun. You have this artistic event freedom and stuff, but it's not like, you can go to this, hey man, I didn't get paid because it snowed outside. Tough shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you're not going to you don't have a gig that night. So that happens. Look at the pandemic. It's crushing people.
Yeah.
Who are strictly music people, you know what I'm saying? Or artists, period, and who are depending on that. So the teaching thing was more like I need some stability.
Or agents.
Yeah, man.
And agents whose entire income is based upon live music.
Everybody involved. Everybody. Club owners, promoters, sound technicians, lighting guys, everyone who has anything to do with live entertainment is asked out. So the whole teaching thing was like, I mean, I'm thankful, bro. I mean, if I didn't have this teaching job, wow. And I sympathize with you and others who are full time with it, man. I mean, more power to you. I support you all the way. I'm really right now. I'm just really fortunate and thankful to have that check coming.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I like it. It's fun, and I love kids, so that's a plus.
And what age group are you teaching, or what grade are you teaching again?
Elementary. I'm an elementary school teacher in PG County.
And what grades?
Pre-K through 6.
Through 6. Okay, got you. So, I think my first exposure to go-go was in 6th grade. I didn't really latch on to it until a little bit after. But are your 6th graders like? Are they starting to like? I guess, assert themselves musically, like in taste wise? Like, do they know what kind of music they like? Like, I think it was about fifth grade or so. Darren X posted a Bon Jovi thing earlier today, and I distinctly remember that hearing "Living on a Prayer" in fifth grade on the radio was like the first time I ever was like, okay, this is like music that I like, not just like that my parents were listening to. You know what I mean? So is that, I don't know if that's common or not, though, to be honest with you. Are the sixth graders like, do they have artists that they like?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're on that plateau. I mean, I don't know because no one's ever came to me and said, "Hey, I like an obscure type of sound." There are more, kids like all the trap music and rap stuff, and don't give me the line. I can't name one person, bro. I'm out there.
Well, no, the reason I'm asking is because I'm trying to figure out at what, there's definitely a point. There's definitely a cutoff point where go-go is not the thing anymore. Like, like when we were coming up, it was, I mean, I say when we were coming up, you're about 100 years older than me, but when even when I was coming up, which was later than when you were coming up, go-go was still like this omnipresent thing that was, like the most important thing musically in the area. And at some point it just isn't anymore. And I'm wondering, like, I guess I'm wondering, does anybody younger than 30 even care about it at all?
So when you're talking about the go-go genre in my school and my kids, I would say no. They know about it because of their parents, and a lot of my students know that I used to play with Chuck because of their parents. Like, their parents would come to school. Oh, I know you from somewhere. Oh, you used to play with Chuck Brown. So so I get some of that.
Right.
And they know, they Google stuff and YouTube stuff, old shows, and see me on stage. But yeah, I don't think any. I mean, where I am, I'm in PG County in the Cheverly Landover area, and I don't think the go-go is a popular choice for the kids in my age group. I mean, you can.
Right.
It depends on where you are. I mean, if you go down to, I mean, that's a good question, man. I don't know.
I don't know. Landover's always been a pretty hotbed area.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, for that age range, I bet you if I was in high school, it'd probably be a different story. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But for the elementary kids, they're mostly into top 40 trap, rap, whatever is really, really popular on the radio. And
right.
just the go-go team is just not that for them.
Well, so are they listening to the radio, or are they listening to Spotify and YouTube? And
I think a little bit of both. I mean, radio probably not as much, but YouTube. These kids now, they watch YouTube on TV. Like,
yeah, not kids. I watch it on, my wife and I watch it on TV. Yeah,
you're watching like little boys making cupcakes or something. Like, what?
Dude, there's some weird ass shit going. Like, my wife watches a whole bunch of weird shit of people, like this mukbang thing where it's like you watch people eating, and then there's ASDM where you listen to people whispering. There's all kind of weird shit. Yeah, my wife's looking at me like I'm crazy. But yeah, you were just watching some mukbang review shit yesterday. Don't act like you weren't. But okay, so going a little bit older than the kids that you teach. So your son is a musician as well. And how old is Brendan again?
21. He'll be 21 next Wednesday. So 20,
okay. 21. Okay, so that's a perfect age group. So he has decided not to go the go-go route. Right. Is that because he's not interested in go-go, or that's just what, like that? I'm curious. This is sort of this whole thing is really based around me trying to find out a couple of things. One is, or to accomplish a couple of things. One is to sort of spread the message, things like you're talking about, like that Chuck Brown was a really nice guy. And if you're a really nice guy to people and you treat people fairly, then that breeds success. You know what I'm saying? And if you're James Funk and you work hard and you focus on perfection, then that breeds success. And it seems like in go-go, there's a lot of, sort of misinformation about, you got to be an asshole. You got to be, I'm about my money. Give me my money. I'm this, I'm that. You know what I'm saying? And it's this, and that's, I feel like, a lot of what keeps us back. And so the other thing I'm trying to do is to flush out to see if there's even a future for go-go, like, because it's not going to be from people our age making music. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be from people Brendan's age making the music, or even, some of your kids starting to come up and think about making the music as well. So I'm just trying to get a gauge on whether people in that age group even give a shit at all, like even if it's bounce beat or whatever, you know.
Tough one, man. That's a tough question, tough situation. I mean, I think young musicians today are more into like the whole snarky puppy kind of vibe, and uh, what's it, Jacob Collier and Corey Henry, and those and that freedom to be able to move and play so many different genres. With go-go, unfortunately, it's kind of like the same vibe the whole night long. It's a culture, you know what I mean? It's not really like a. I mean, it is a genre, but it's a culture that's associated. Go-go is not just like listening to it; it's like going there, being the call.
Well, and in its present form, it is. But
Yeah.
I argue with sometimes with people that say that go-go is about the show. Go-go is about the lead rapper. It's about the call and response. It's about this and it's about that. And I say, well, what's the very first thing you said when you heard Jill Scott, It's Love, or A. Marie, One Thing, or Beyonce and Jay-Z, Crazy in Love? The very first thing you said is that's go-go. And none of those other things except for the percussion. So in my opinion, the percussion is what makes go-go.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge part of it, absolutely. So yeah, I mean the you know Jill Scott, bless her soul, love her. All these people are some in some shape, way, shape, or form are like culture bandits who kind of took that and
But is
made.
it their fault if we're not doing anything with it? Is it?
No,
Should
no,
it just?
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not. I mean, to use the same culture bandit, I know that sounds negative, and I'm not trying to be. I don't mean it that way. I mean it like, for a lot of people in the country that heard It's Love, like, oh, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? Or like, oh, that's go-go? Oh, okay. You know what I'm saying? Or like, what is that? Oh, that's go-go. I never heard of it. But they heard of it because of Jill Scott. They heard of it because of A. Marie or, whatever. Anyone who's had, and they're definitely not the first to do it.
For sure.
Salt and Pepper and, whoever, all these old Dougie Fresh. I'm getting ready, you know what I mean? So, no, I'm not blaming them. I'm not mad at them. As a matter of fact, I'm one of the people that cheers them on and says that's great because it gives go-go some exposure, some light that it needs. You know what I mean?
Right. I want us to be the ones to give it light as opposed to somebody from the outside. Not that I am objecting to that, but I'm objecting to it only being that. You know what I'm saying? And that's our fault.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to be. I mean, me too. I would love for go-go to have its own machine and own its own identity without having to relate it to another person who's a national artist. Like, it'd be nice to be like, oh,
for go-go musicians or artists to be the national artists.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for it.
Yep.
I'm not against anyone else who takes from the culture, though. I'm not mad at you at all.
For sure. So okay, so did you and Brendan ever have any discussion about why he decided not to go into go-go at all, or
I remember there's somebody called me one time to ask me about him and about playing with their band. They're a go-go band, and I was like, I don't think he wants to do it. I talked to him about it, and he was like, I mean, his first question was, well, how much is it paying? And I was
just like his dad.
I don't know. But he wasn't like, yeah, I'm down. I mean, I think just because his musicianship is, he's I know I'm his dad. I'm going to say great things, but he's really, really gifted, man. And I think the go-go for him, I think would be will be holding him back from what he can do musically.
Which that's the thing that I think is so amazing, because if you look at some of the top drummers in the world, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take for example, Adam Deitch is a guy that plays for a band called Lettuce. He plays for Soul Live. He used to play for Average White Band. He played for John Schofield, the jazz guitar player. He was on the cover of Modern Drummer multiple times. His parents are famous drummers. He's literally one of the, recognized as one of, I mean, not the top drummer, but one of a very well-known drummer.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the studio with him in New York when I was putting together Mambo Sauce with a friend of a friend. And do you know what he talked to me about the whole entire time? Stomp Dog. He would not stop talking about Stomp Dog. You know what I mean? Like he was, and these are guys that are like, at this time, like he was playing with John Schofield. I don't even know, I'm sure you know who that is. He's like my favorite jazz guitar player. He's like amazing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they were treating me like I was a celebrity because I played for Northeast Groovers. Like this is the thing, is that the heavyweight musicians look at go-go with respect.
Mm-hmm.
We as people in go-go look at go-go with disdain, which is the easiest shit to me ever. You know what I'm saying? Like the people in the music industry look at go-go as an influence, as something special, but we don't treat it like that. We treat it like the stepchild. We treat it like, well, I'm playing in this go-go band for some money, but I'm really working on my R&B project, or I'm really working on my hip-hop project, or whatever. And I think a lot of that has to do with a lot of the misinformation that I was talking about earlier, and that's part of what I'm trying to spread with this series, is to hopefully like instill some pride back into the genre. Like it's literally the only genre of music that you can trace, to a single person as the as the originator of it. And now it's the official music of DC. And I get frustrated when we look at it as though it's like, it's just my little side hustle thing. When really, if we flip that around and realize that nobody else can do this the way that we can do it, and if we just take, this of course is what I was trying to do with Mambo Sauce. You know what I mean? But what I ran into with Mambo Sauce is a lot of chatter in the ears of the people in the band that were spreading more of this misinformation about how the larger music industry works, because of how go-go works or has worked in the past, because of it trickling down from whoever it trickled down from. And that's what ruins everything every time. You know what I'm saying? And if you look at the most successful person in the genre being Chuck Brown, and you're saying he's a nice guy, he's, like treats his band members with respect, Tom's got his business on point, they're doing everything at a high level. And then everybody else is like, oh, I don't need to do that. We're just go-go. Well, then that's why you're just go-go, because you're not doing the shit that the other people are doing to be more than that. You know what I'm saying? So if you just applied the principles that national and international artists, like Thievery Corporation or Chuck Brown or whoever, put the effort into their thing, then you would have a different result. You know what I mean? Right. So anyway, sorry to jump on the soapbox there, but that is sort of the purpose of my that's sort of the purpose of this series, is to kind of get to those things, and hopefully like put some pride back into it, if it's even possible, if it's not too late.
I know that you brought me on here to interview me, but I want to pose a question to you on what you just said. So in your opinion, what would it take to have that flipped, where go-go is respected and recognized, and where like you said, your guy Adam is looking at Stomp Dog as the beginning and the end of all, as opposed to what's holding us back?
So there's multiple facets to it. So there's another story I will tell you is, as you know, RC and the Grits, who's Erykah Badu's band, is my client. I booked him out here in LA. I am the gentleman's name escapes me because he doesn't play with the band all the time, but he was out here playing he was playing the MPC on stage. Come to find out, he's the guy that produced On and On. Well, I was talking to him in the back of the venue, the Mint. He produced On and On for Erykah Badu. Literally, song changed my life. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, was one of the most influential songs, from an artist for me in my sort of musical journey. When I told him I played for Northeast Groovers, he damn near lost his mind.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So the issue is not the respect for musicians from other genres. That's there. The issue is not the respect from the industry. That's there, sort of. The issue is the connecting with fans outside of DC, and in the way that, because we've been so conditioned to treat go-go as this is just our hustle that's going to make us some money, and I need this $150 a night, 3 nights a week, so that I can pay my phone bill or I can go to the club and buy some bottles or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Whereas you have literally the same people, and I talk to a lot of people, and that's part of the reason why I did this too, because like this is conversations I have with people on the phone all the time. I'm like, why don't I just bring it on to YouTube? And the way you get to the fans is by making music and creating music that is in the format that they understand already. You know what I'm saying? And so, and
verse hook like that. Is that what you mean? Like format like that way?
Yeah, exactly. So it's songs. Basically, is the end of the end of the discussion is songs.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be a shitload of songs written, and there aren't. You know what I mean? And when there are songs written, they're not that good. And the reason they're not that good is because people only write 1 or 2 or maybe 3 songs a year. As opposed to if you look at professional songwriters, or you look at artists like I had Eric and Trey from UCB on doing these interviews, and they tour with Wale, and they're in the studio with him all the time. He'll cut like 40 songs to get it down to 10 for each album. And that's more indicative of what happens in the greater music industry. You record a shitload of songs, and then you pick the best ones. Where in go-go, we say, oh, I'm going to go into the studio, and they're going to, take 10 minutes to set us up, and they're going to place, and we're going to play through these songs twice, and then we're going to be like, all right, cool, we're done. See you later. You know what I mean? And, that doesn't cut it. You know what I'm saying? But I also understand that there are difficulties in the fact that go-go bands are expensive to record, because there's a lot of people in the band, and it takes a long time, and you have to allot 2 hours extra for people to be late to the studio into your budget, because you're going to be paying for the time where you're waiting for half the band to show up. And it's just take it seriously is really the end of it. Take it seriously and write some songs, and keep writing songs until they get good. Like, you got to write a lot of songs. And if you can't write songs, take your ego out of it and understand that the biggest go-go song of all time, The Butt, was not written by EU, and that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Whitney Houston never wrote a song. It doesn't mean, just because you are a musician doesn't mean you're a songwriter. Those are 2 totally separate things. Sometimes they live in the same person, and sometimes they don't. But if you don't have a great song, you don't have shit. So that's what I'm saying. And my personal opinion is that the future of go-go is not in, 35 to 55-year-old dudes. It's in, 18 to 24-year-old people. And I believe it's more of a bounce beat sound, and I believe it's a producer-driven medium. There's 4 or 5 guys in bounce beat that are producing, bounce beat style records. They're not all the way there yet, but they're much more similar to trap or whatever else is popular on the radio right now, or on Spotify right now. And so that's what I think. It's my long-winded ass answer.
Okay.
But real quick before we go, because I told you it was going to go fast. We're on almost an hour and a half already. Was the Crank Jam. So, speaking of Corey Henry and those guys that your son likes, I built the Crank Jam after an event that they do out here called the Juice Joint on Monday nights. Obviously not now, but basically it's where all the touring musicians, all the people that are on tour or not on tour at that particular moment, come to cut their chops. And some of the guys from Erykah Badu's band, Corey Henry, was there last time I came, and they just come in and they jam. You know what I mean? And they just jam out and they keep their chops up. And sometimes people are in there that that pick them up to go on tours and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so on that note, I tried to create something similar in DC called the Crank Jam, and Monique Town. So I hope it's still on. She's been very supportive of this show, and I really appreciate it. And she just come to the Crank Jam all the time too. She says, "What were your thoughts on the Crank Jam sessions held at City Winery? Do you think that event should come back if the outside opens back up? I thought this was a great event and different. What are your thoughts on the Crank Jam?"
Absolutely. I mean, that was, as far as I know, the first of its kind. You and I know firsthand experience, have been at shows, and when the show's over, there's like 5 to 6 guys waiting to play the congos who doesn't know anybody, just wants to get up there and play. It's like, yep. It's like they're like they live for that. They can't wait to get up there and play. So I thought that this was a great opportunity for people who are not in a band or always wanted to be, or always just wanted to get on stage and play something, to have that opportunity. I'm still all in, and I think it's a great concept. I think yes. Everything you're saying, I agree. Yes, I love it. I think that they should do it again. I think it should come back. And you're right. I mean, different is the word. I mean, I've never seen anything like it before, especially for go-go music and go-go musicians. I mean, we did it a few times. It was, had a great time. I mean, you had sax players, trumpet players, drummers. I mean, every instrument. There was somebody in the crowd that got up. I mean, singers, rappers, talkers, whatever, everyone, and it was cool, man. So I just think, with anything, it needs some time to develop, and we just didn't. I think, we need a little bit more time, a little bit more frequency, a little bit more promotion, exposure, and there's a lot of people just didn't know what was happening. And I think that if with the right ingredients of promoting and the business side of it and pushing it, I think it would be awesome. It was a great, because we had some people that no one's ever heard of. We had some well-known go-go musicians to come and jam. So I thought it was a great concept, and I would love to do it again. So yeah, man, I'm 100% for it.
Dope. Well, yeah, we definitely gotta get the word out more, because it just wasn't taking off in terms of the crowd that we needed. My man Chris said, "I have zero rhythm, but would love to play the congos or timbales or even a guitar." My man Chris from Create DC, that's my man. He's the one that turned me on to this platform that I'm using to stream these videos. So thanks to him for that. All right, man. Well, I got a meeting in 2 minutes. We've been running our mouth. So always good to talk to you, my friend. I'm sure I'll talk to you soon. I saw an email came through that we need to address for one of the shows we have booked. So I'll get with you, on that in the next day or so. And thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it, brother.
I appreciate you having me. This is great, man. Thanks a lot.
All right, have a good one.
All right, I'll be safe.